Good morning. Today we're taking a look at XRP, some XRP market cap data, and the Sigma coin. So, checking in here on the 4-hour XRP, we've had a 5-wave impulse off the lows, an ABC correction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the full waves, and a bullish divergence on the 4-hour. Okay, so that means the momentum is getting less and less aggressive, but yet price was coming down, which means absorption. Okay. Good pop off the lows here, and last night we actually ended up setting a higher low here on XRP with a low of 182.71. So it's looking like that might very well be nearing or close to the end on the USD price. Now, what's interesting is when we pop over to, well, actually, let's continue the momentum real quick. So here's our 4-hour. We got a nice pop off the lows. Let's see if we can reclaim and start setting higher highs. This is still our target. So we knew going into yesterday and the few days that we needed to clear this breakdown area at $1.98 and change and get back above these. And we could not. We went straight up and then lost it again, right? So a full rejection of that breakout wasn't sustainable. Now we've come back down, so we're going to give it another chance here. So we'll see if we can be able to do that. But we've been tagging this -2 deviation quite consistently here. So, all right, so here's the setup. This is what we have on the 4-hour bullish divergence. Very good stuff, right? Daily still working on getting to the bottom of this whole range here. So maybe at some point we'll be able to start curving back up again on the daily. But the biggest thing to note is that yesterday, because of that smackdown, we ended up losing the bullish momentum on our 3-day candles here. Now, this ended up printing a negative red day with that huge wick down over this 3 days. Now, we just started the new 3 days. So if we're somehow able to maybe close back up in this region, this may flip back green. But it's something to be aware of, that this, which has been a very consistent indicator, telling us not to own XRP since August 5th, and then start looking to buy here through November 30th, is telling us that it's not potentially ready yet. So there may still be a rollover. So keep that in mind. We're going to watch this. You have time. No need to do anything crazy. You just, because when this does happen, you have maybe 3 to 6 days to kind of make a decision on everything. So no need to be quick. So examples of what this looked like more recently is kind of in this region here. So we can see that we had a bullish print into this candle, and then it ultimately came back and printed negative, smacking down the price pretty quickly. And then you would have had to exit, reaccumulate here on the 3-day when this told you to, right? So you would have basically bought in at this spot, right? So you would have bought this candle based off the 3 days. So let's say you're somewhere in there, right? So you're at the top of the range. Then it says, never mind, shouldn't have bought this thing. And so now you get somewhere over here on that candle, right? We're just going to go to the kind of the high and the high of these candles. So then you would have been able to then look for sniping of the lows. And then if you have this one again, you would have rebought in this region. So you would have ultimately bought somewhere below your cost basis, because you would have bought it, lost it, sold, re-entered, if you didn't catch this massive huge wick to the downside, which you can do in these regions, right? So these are not perfect snipes, they're just areas of trend. And then you would have been able to run this all the way up to here. And again, this didn't sustain until you got back down into this region here, so it would have washed you out, or you would have taken profits with the stop loss. So keep in mind that this is not a perfect snipe of the blows. It's more of a general trend that gives you a majority of the big moves when they come into play. So now, when we come back over here, that may have been the snipe, right? So that's why you're gonna watch price action, be cautious of what we have going on, and we know that our daily is still almost completely maxed to the bottom, still floating on the bottom down here, and giving us a 4-hour with a bullish divergence across the top here, which is telling us that price action goes down, momentum is getting less and less and less, absorption is occurring. So this may pop off, flip that thing, the daily and the 3-day back to positive, and we're off, right? And you snipe the bottom, okay? So that's where we're at this point. So check into that, watch it, make your decisions on that. But that's how we're looking at the shorter time frames with the with our main indicator. So, all right, now this was fascinating. So we did not set a lower low here. So I bounced over to the market cap, and we did set a lower low on the market cap. So it's to me now, looking at the market cap, this has been a pretty good chart for wave counting at this point. And what we basically have going on is a completion of our 5 waves. So we have a full 5-wave breakdown now at this point. And we had a gap over here, right? So this gap on the 12-hour was sitting basically right here at this spot where we had a little wick and candle there. And lo and behold, we basically came down and closed the majority of it and bounced, right? So you can see how close that came. So ultimately, that means to me that I think this is now the completion of the flat. We're working our way out of here. 3-day is telling us that we may need a little bit more time, but again, it's not a perfect snipe. But the 4-hour is saying that we got some momentum behind us to maybe squeeze out of this pocket here. And with that, we've got the same kind of setup here that we ended up having that lower low be set for Sigma coin compared to XRP, and it too basically completed a final 5th wave of this larger WXY correction to the downside, going below the volume gap that we had on 1010. So this is now, to me, also looking like we're getting close there. So people still capitulating. Price action of XRP is playing into this. You can see that wick for XRP there and then back down again. So if we get XRP back up to reclaim, we'll start getting some strength on the AMM pools. But at this point, we're just waiting for upward motion, and it looks like we're getting there. So to recap, Sigma looks like it's wrapping up its move, aligned with XRP. XRP now, Sigma looks like this, with is what XRP is looking like, so that's good. And we're starting to see a bounce with the final completion of the 5 waves. And lastly, we've got a momentum shift on the 4-hour, potentially giving us some bullish impulses on the shorter time frames that will roll into the daily, giving us a turnaround here, which will ultimately roll into the 3-day, which could give us a false negative here at the lows for this accumulation area that it's been telling us to do. And this flips back to being green. So, all right, so hopefully that's helpful as of today, but be mindful that if we do roll over, we could easily come down into this 166 region, maybe even 158, maybe even lower down to 145. So it could be a quick flash crash just like this did, and that's possibly what this is warning you of, with the switch from going from green to red. But one more thing I also observed here is if you look at where this line is here on this indicator, on the left hand side, you can see that we were up at this level and we're actually below that now. So it's even weaker than it was through this region as far as oversold is concerned. So that's good news, because that means it's probably less likely to do a flash crash, because I mean, we just did one. So we'll see. All right, that's how we're checking into the markets this morning, and hopefully that was helpful.